Okay, now that we've been through all the interactive lessons on the plan communications management process, let's go and review each of those. I'll do a quick whiteboard drawing for you here on the process of plan communications management. So if you recall, in the inputs, one of the inputs was the project charter. And that project charter then we used as a method for getting a sense of what is expected from the project, what we see as its need, its purpose, its direction. It's high level, but it is giving us some guidance, and that would include guidance on what we see as important communications, maybe some of the key stakeholders, and other information we need to be aware of. More importantly, though, from there, at least a little more detailed, is your project management plan. And yes, the project management plan is going to include the output of this process, the communications plan. Nevertheless, the PMP is an input, including whatever current version of the communications management plan you have, and the other plans, such as stakeholder engagement plans and any other plans that would obviously affect how we go about planning the communications. There could also be various project documents that would be very useful. Those project documents could include, say, the stakeholder register, that list of who's in the project, what's their influence, what kind of stake they hold, and various information about that. Pretty much as always, you have your enterprise environmental factors, which is those series of factors that are influencing how you go about managing your project. And if you are working in a large organization with high dependency on certain communication tools, then you are probably going to be forced to use those tools within your project organization. That you are simply just a product of your environment and the enterprise in which you work in. That's just one example. Also, you have your tools, your templates, your policies, your procedures, all those kind of things, which I just referred to as the OPA, which is your organizational process assets. So maybe you have a template that you use to even build this communication plan, and that would be an OPA example. All right, so all of those then are your inputs, and they're going to be using some tools and techniques for us to plan our communications management. One, very simple, is our expert judgment. So I'm going to draw this guy thinking and trying to think about how do we want to go about managing our communications. So expert judgment, and that could be anybody on your team. As subject matter experts in terms of communications, maybe you have a communications director or somebody who's very good at speaking with the press. Maybe that's you. Maybe it's, more likely, it's a combination of everybody. There could be certain requirements, and so you have an analysis, maybe a chart and graphs and readouts that say certain communications are necessary. We even talked about the communication channels, and I'll just put channels, and that would be part of your communication requirements analysis. And beyond that, some of the other tools and techniques would be the various technologies that we use. Many of us have smartphones and tablets and other means. Sometimes we use, say, Skype or other technology. Sometimes we just use something on our computers that allow us to work and communicate more effectively. Whatever the technology is that we're using, that would be the tool and technique that's going to allow us to be able to communicate in our project, and we're going to plan accordingly because of what we know and have. There's also, too, the various different models. So whether it's speaking to each other or sending each other email, any of those different formats, that would be the methods. And then there's also the models. So whether it's push, it's pull, it's interactive. There's also the team skills, so the ability to recognize differences in the and then the politics and the cultural awareness, and let's make this a little female. So those type of interpersonal and team skills come in very handy in how we go about planning our communications management. And then there's other type of ways to look at our information. Maybe we have some grids with our stakeholders and what communications they need, or any kind of graphs or data, and that would be however we represent it is our data representation. And then one final one, just to wrap this up, would be our meetings. Just like if we're planning any kind of plan, we have meetings to discuss what are the best ways to go about managing our communications, as well as reviewing how it's working, how it's not working, what we need to make a change with, and suggest those changes, etc. All of these tools and techniques fit into our outputs. The obvious one, if the whole process is about plan communications management, well then obviously we should have a communications plan. That's pretty obviously. So a communications management plan, which then will feed into our project management plan. And so that will lead to updates to the project management plan, as well as it could have a trickling effect onto other plans inside that project management plan, and potentially to all the various documents that we are utilizing as part of our project. And that would also be updated. So an update here and an update here, and then the main piece, which is your communications management plan. And that is a quick look and review of what we talked about in the crowd training interactive online course in regards to the process of plan communications management.